Thank you very much, everyone. As hopefully most of you will know, I'm Alan Bowditch, and I am the Chief Communications Officer of Engage Estero, and obviously am responsible for many of the things that you do receive from us. Not everything, but quite a number of things. As I mentioned, this meeting is a follow-up from the one that we had on October the 24th, and Matthew Mayer, who was in fact involved with that meeting, is here again. He's the Senior Associate Traffic Engineer of Stantec Consulting. And with him at the last meeting was Ron Gogoi, who is a colleague of Don Scott. Don, in fact, is the Executive Director of the Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization. And we also have Carmen Monroy. Carmen, in fact, some of you may know, has also attended a number of things from us in the past, particularly at the public forum meeting on developments here in Estero. And I'm delighted to welcome Carmen back. She's the Transportation Manager of CTS Engineering. Now, I think they won't be embarrassed for me to tell you that we have here today probably three of the most top people here in Southwest Florida who are dealing with traffic issues. And it's my delight to obviously welcome them all. Matt will talk about initially the Safe Streets for All strategy that's part of this overall focus that is on, of course, our future developments here. Don will speak about the development, perhaps in the future, and the extension of Route 951, and also the long-range plans for the area. Some of you, of course, may have seen a snippet of information yesterday that was announced for the extension of Three Oaks up to Daniels Road. And Carmen will talk about workforce housing, something that's quite dear to our hearts. We've certainly been talking a lot. Terry Flanagan has written a number of articles about this because it's a very integral part, actually, of safety issues and traffic reduction. So that's an important topic as well. So we obviously have a lot to get through, but we will have time, obviously, for questions. I know that many of you have probably come with burning questions in your head for our three panelists. So without further ado, I'd like to ask Matt to come up and start things rolling for us.
Thank you so much, Alan. And it's a pleasure to be here, especially to be in such an important forum to talk about the issue, the public health crisis that is on our roadways, that is very relevant to the Estero community. So Lee County Metropolitan Planning Organization has been funded by the Federal Highway Administration to do a review of all roadways in Lee County, regardless of jurisdiction, on what the crash data shows, where the safety areas are that are in need of improvement, and what are the potential fixes that we would look to get all jurisdictions involved in on, whether it's municipal engineers for your more local roads, Lee County DOT for those county corridors, and District 1, Florida Department of Transportation State Office for those state route corridors, all of which go through your community. To begin, just a brief overview on crash analysis. We touched a little bit on this last time in October, but here we have within this 5-year analysis period, county-wide, almost 100,000 total crashes, 500 of which have resulted in fatalities, one or more, in fact. And then serious injury crashes, which also attract a lot of our attention, crashes that have resulted in loss of limb or some traumatic injury. We have north of 2,100 of those incidents occurring within the county. Right here in the village, we over that same period, we have roughly 3,000 crashes, roughly 80 of those resulting in one or more fatality or serious injury. And so we see, while not per capita not the highest rate of fatal and serious injury crashes, still 200 per 100,000, and certainly elevated when we look at statewide or national crash performance. So it certainly bears our attention, which is why not only we've been taking a look at Lee County, but drilling down to Estero to see what's going on our roadways and what can we do to improve. So north and south on US 41, we see this line of emphasis area intersections identified. You'll see those in red are intersections that are identified by the crash data. It's what we call our site-specific analysis, meaning what does a crash data history show us as the high crash intersections within the village. And then those highlighted in yellow, those are from our systemic analysis, meaning we identified crash issues based on the crash data at the intersections dotted in red. However, are there geometric features or demographic data at those intersections identified in red based on crash history that would also make all these other intersections prone to fatal or serious injury crashes? Next slide.
Do you want to try it?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There you go.
Perfect. So at these various intersections, we have recommendations. These mainly address...
Excellent. Now I have range of motion. We have recommendations to address intersection-based crashes. These are the types of crashes where we're seeing rear-end collisions, T-bone crashes, or right-angle crashes. And so what can we do to address that at these various intersections? Where intersections are unsignalized, more importantly, we would increase lines of sights, especially,
Since we're talking about intersections, what about stopping U-turns at all these intersections? Because people
Absolutely.
slow down when they have to make a U-turn, and you've got 7 cars behind you, can't make that left-hand turn.
The U-turn certainly slows down the speed to process left turn traffic. And if you have 2 U-turners in front of you, you're like, I'm not getting through this light. So U-turning restrictions are also something we're looking at signalized locations such as this. It's also important to restrict U-turn traffic when the receiving opposite direction is rather narrow, because then you risk collisions between U-turn traffic and right turn traffic that's coming off the side street, so that's very important. Great point. Going back to the bullets here, sight lines, so this could include sight line easements at intersection, or vegetation easements where you trim back trees, especially on unsignalized locations, so vehicles can see each other as they approach the intersection. Signal backplates with retroreflective borders improve the visibility of the signal. It provides a high contrast element so people can more clearly identify what the signal indicator is showing, red, green, or yellow, as you're pulling up to the intersection. I'm sure you've seen these at quite a few locations, still not implemented everywhere, and we're working on that. Next, we have high visibility crosswalks. Sometimes at intersections you'll see just 2 lines running across the street. that is kind of has gone the way of the Iceman. We're looking to do ladder style crosswalks. They're more visible to the driver that's approaching the crosswalk, and it makes it stand out more for any pedestrians that may be crossing. And of course, intersection lighting, especially important for pedestrians crossing at these intersection locations. This tries to show that we provide, or at least try to provide, pedestrian scale lighting, meaning the lighting is focused on the pedestrian crossing areas at each intersection.
I'm
Yes?
sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
Does the county provide or have intelligent traffic systems, ITS?
So Lee County DOT is working on a vehicle to infrastructure program. I don't have a lot of detail on that though.
Because that will have an impact on intersections, traffic, and everything else.
Very much so, yes. The city of Lakeland has done a lot of signal performance measures that we're seeing could be adapted to possibly county signals or state signals in the future. So signal detection technology has come a long way. In fact, it can actually detect when a vehicle is about to run a red light and extend what's called an all red interval, meaning all vehicles on approach to the intersection have a red indicator. And although that does reduce intersection capacity, it mitigates the occurrence of a right angle collision, which has more of a propensity to result in a fatality or a serious injury. So yeah, that's a great point. We should be thinking, and we do have recommendations for signal operation strategies. So the next type of crash that we'd like to highlight is left turn emphasis areas. I'm sorry about the map. And I'm sure it'll still show same for the rest of the maps, but we're seeing left turn emphasis areas. Once again, red based on the crash data and yellow based on the intersection geometric data. Because the thing about crashes is that the random events, the data's stochastic, which means 1 year you might have 7 crashes at an intersection, and another year you might have 1. And you could have a valley that lasts for a few years. So we don't only want to take a look at crash data, we want to take a look at how wide the roadway is, and what are the intersection conflict points, and what's the signal phasing. And so, that's why we're doing areas highlighted in red versus areas highlighted in yellow. Yellow is kind of the new methodology or paradigm that we're using to identify these problem areas. So recommendations to address left turn crashes, of course, where right-of-way allows, and utility costs and acquisition costs allow. We would prefer to convert intersections that are less trafficked to roundabouts. And the reason why we skew towards roundabouts, where vehicle volume allows. Obviously, if it's a highly trafficked intersection, it will not work. But as you circulate through a roundabout, you're not susceptible to a right angle crash as you would be at a traditional intersection. The types of crashes that occur at roundabouts are rear end and side swipe crashes. There's a lower speed that occurs when these crashes occur. And so there's less kinetic energy, and what does that translate to? Less loss of life, less serious injuries. So this is one particular improvement, especially a single lane roundabout at a fairly rural intersection. It's kind of an innocuous improvement to knock down what might have been a fatal or serious injury crash hotspot previously. Next, we have evaluate left turn at high crash locations for protected signal phasing. The intersection of US 41 and Williams obviously has been a flashpoint in this community. We want to address what's going on there. A very quick and simple solution, something that can reasonably be done within the next year or so, is changing the signal phasing. So right now you can make a left turn on the green ball. We would change it so that you can only make the left turn when a left turn arrow is displayed. What does that mean? That means that you're exposing traffic, you're exposing left turn traffic currently to oncoming traffic, and we would like to separate those movements so your oncoming traffic is stopped before you're allowed to make the left turn. In fact, this goes back to your point about the U-turn, where not only allowing protected phasing for the left turn is great, but for the U-turn it's more important to stop all other traffic to allow those vehicles to proceed unimpeded if we're allowing them at locations. And then finally, conducting access management studies on high entry network corridors where you have a lot of driveway density is extremely important. Even though you have, on some corridors, two-way left turn lanes, very often people zoom out and maybe you're headed in this direction and you're trying to get some shy distance between that vehicle and yourself as people are coming out of the strip mall or trying to turn into the strip mall. So the whole idea behind an access management study is either consolidating points of access or revoking them entirely, meaning you can only get into Walgreens from the side street, say, or you can only make it to Walmart if you turn into the driveway and continue on and circulate. Essentially, this sort of access management study seeks to cut down on the amount of driveways that are intersecting a major corridor, such as US 41, and that means less traffic turning in and out and less potential conflict points for potentially high severity crashes.
Yeah.
So those are our left turn recommendations.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Why has it taken so long to address that issue at 41 and Williams?
Yeah.
I mean, it's
been a year.
It's been, I don't understand why the green light stays on for the left turn after the arrow has gone off. I mean, why is it such a difficult thing to make sure that doesn't happen?
There's competing interests at intersections. Maybe there was more of a philosophy as, let's try to get all the left turners we can through the signal. Maybe a bit agnostic to the safety issue that lie at hand at that same intersection.
Why couldn't they just have the green arrow go longer?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what we're commissioning Florida Department of Transportation to look into the feasibility of that improvement. Instead of having a green ball, just provide a left turn, and you just make a left turn arrow, and you just make it as long as you need it to be to process all traffic.
While you're discussing that, Coconut Road also needs a lot longer left-hand turn lane. Today it was all the way backed up past via Coconut.
Yeah.
Yesterday also. Yep, every day during the season. Unbelievable.
Yeah. When you have left turn bays that spill back, that increases the chance of rear end crashes. And when it spills into the left lane, they can be fairly high speed in nature. So, yeah, certainly. I don't know if a Q spillback review is currently in our recommendations. We're still before draft, but I'll make sure to check in with my staff on that. Great point. All right. Next we have bicycle and pedestrian emphasis areas. Once again, sorry about the map, but we have those high crash areas, that red line showing what does our crash data history tell us, and then the yellow lines that say, okay, based on this geometric data, where we're seeing bicycle activity based on Bluetooth data, and this is great data. You're on your bike, your phone can actually tell when you're moving at the speed of a bike, and it uploads the data to INRIX. Sorry, Big Brother's watching, but we use all that wonderful data to help us make decisions. And our recommended improvements, BERT is going to be underway. So an off-road facility obviously helps to take bicycle traffic out of the lanes, reduces their exposure, gives them their own dedicated facility, and that is an integral improvement that the village will need to see. Leading pedestrian intervals. So we've seen a boom nationally with this particular crash countermeasure for pedestrian safety. We've seen it start out in the more urban areas, New York City, Miami, but where we're seeing a lot of pedestrians crossing at different locations, what we'll do is we'll provide a walk signal while all directions of traffic receive a red signal. Vehicular traffic, everyone stopped, to allow pedestrians to start to walk out into the intersection, establish their presence, and get a good sight line with all approaching traffic. Because these are, after all, our most vulnerable road users, so we want to protect them, especially because they're not in a car, they're very exposed to the potential of a fatal or serious injury crash. And then enhanced crosswalk treatments. Here we have a rectangular rapid flashing beacon, so that means the pedestrian pushes this button here before they cross the street, and that's meant to attract the traffic. It gets a good yielding rate from traffic, about 90%. If you want to up that even more, we have PHBs, which are pedestrian hybrid beacons. Maybe you've seen them in Orlando, where you press a button and you're given 2 red lights. The vehicle driver is given 2 red lights to stop, and then they proceed when it starts to flash. And then adequate crossing opportunities. We noted specifically Leland Height Boulevard, near transit stops, so getting people onto Lee Tran and off of Lee Tran in a more efficient and safe manner. And then protected intersections where right-of-way allowing dedicated bike lanes or areas for bicyclists to cross on the side of crosswalks, and that will probably be in tandem with BERT.
Matthew,
Yes.
are you ready to handle Lear?
Oh yes. Thanks for keeping me on track. Lane departure, I can cover this briefly. This is corkscrew along the Lee Collier line, curve warning signs on Lee Boulevard, and then center line, edge line rumble strips. Essentially, this is all meant to mitigate the occurrence of runoff road traffic. You'll notice maybe on newer roads, you start to strain to the shoulder, the stripe actually rumbles, indicating that you've strayed off the path, that you kind of need to get your vehicle honed in back onto the path of travel. And increased pavement friction on curves also helps to mitigate runoff road collisions. A sample of comments we've received from our public survey. 71% desire increased enforcement. We've seen that as a huge theme throughout the study. There's this disinvestment in local enforcement, and it's leading to riskier driver behaviors. So we're not only proposing engineered crash solutions, but also policy crash solutions, because it's not only infrastructure based, it's a policy and political-based issue that needs attention.
Well, can I interrupt there, sir?
Sure.
I mean, to me, that's the elephant in the room. I mean, when are we going to get traffic enforcement in the village of Estero, or anywhere in the state of Florida for that matter? But in Lee County, I mean, it's rampant.
Yeah, what we're going to be discussing in our safety action plan document, which will be available for public review at the end of the study, is policies and funding strategies that will actually help to increase enforcement in communities. So there'll be programs for police officers to dedicate more of their time to enforcement. This is something we've seen not only within Lee County, but throughout all of South Florida. There's this continual lack of enforcement. There's strategies that are coming from the feds that help to put a bit more teeth to enforcement strategies, and we'll certainly speak to those in the safety action plan. Yes.
I'm glad to see, because I hadn't seen it addressed, the signal at Estero and Cascades. Because I noticed on your charts, you just have the lights, of course.
Yes.
You do know you have basically, I'm from Indiana, you've got the Indianapolis 500 at that whole road, because it's just straight out, and I'm surprised there's not more accidents. But I'm glad to see that you will be at least looking at a signal.
I'd like to add to what she's saying. At that intersection, I'm sure that you're familiar with, that's like a four-way.
Mm-hmm.
The Cascades is on one side, they're trying to get out, and they're trying to go across to take a left, to go west. People coming out of the reserve are looking to go east, all right? Those cars are almost hitting each other when they try to get in the center.
Yep.
Then we're told that if you're in the center, it's against the law to stay in the center. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's a very serious problem, and I've been trying to address this. I've talked to the mayor about this, I've talked to Carmen, I've talked to people in Tallahassee, and here's what I got, and this is gonna be hard for this room to believe. There are not enough accidents there, and you don't have enough fatalities to put a light or to straighten out that intersection. Now, I think that's poor management on the part of the state and on the part of our community. Someone is going to get killed there, and I don't know if you've looked at that, or if that's an area that you've looked at, and if nothing else, when you go to pull out of there, the vegetation is too high.
Mm-hmm.
I cannot see small sports cars, I cannot see motorcycles. I could definitely see trucks, vans, and most SUVs,
Yep.
but you can't even see them.
Yep.
So there's either a vegetation, or there has to be something down there.
Could I just ask, I know these issues are very important and we don't want to ignore them, but obviously in the interest of the other speakers who I do want to get up,
Wait till the end.
yes, if you wouldn't mind, and obviously
problem.
if you are finished, then
Yeah.
we'll hand
Yeah,
it.
I'll talk to you about that later.
I'd like
Absolutely.
to talk on the side about that later.
All right, great. We'll continue to.
One interjection if I may.
If Alan's okay with that.
I've been working for about 3 years with everybody from the sheriff's department, through the governor's office, through Senator Martin's office, through the DPS, through the DOT, and I've come up with one conclusion. This is the worst safety corridor I've ever seen in my life. There's a study going on right now, according to Jeremy Stecker. In 4 months, it'll be completed in April on the traffic situation on Tamiami. For the absurdity of it all, according to Jeremy, if they find that over 50% of the people are exceeding the speed limit over 8 miles an hour, that their charter puts them in the direction of increasing the speed limit on Tamiami. Now, this is going on as we speak. After 3 years of studying the traffic situation here, everything from moving violations to speeding to racing to excessive everything, I've come to the conclusion that none of our departments are coordinating anything. One is blaming the other, and that's about all I have. I have much more research material
but I can get to that. I just wondered how long your program is going to last before we can get down to the nuts and bolts.
Sure. Well, as I said, these issues are very important, and I don't want to ignore them, but in the interest of the other speakers, I would very much like you to keep
Just
your,
a time
keep your
scenario would
comments
be
until
good.
the
What's your
end.
time scenario?
We are leaving.
Next slide.
We are leaving.
Keep going.
Questions after.
Please give credit to our other speakers who we've invited first. You will have a chance to speak afterwards. Thank you.
Yeah. I can tell you that an increase in speed limit on 41 is antithetical to what we're seeking to do here. So, we're recommending speed management strategies. Just to briefly touch on timeline, and then you have all my time in the world once everyone's done presenting. Right now, we're here at the end of February. We're going to be issuing a final safety action plan in May. But it doesn't stop in May, because this is a continual effort. What the MPO is going to be doing is a yearly reporting, and this is what we're seeing with other similar safety action plans, is a yearly reporting of how are the crashes going down based on the action plan recommendations in our study. There's going to be continual follow-up items, timelines, responsibilities, so it's not as if this year, this isn't a drive-by study, so to speak. This is a study that puts a plan in place where the MPO can continually work on the safety improvements that our study recommends. Coordinates with DOT, coordinates with Lee County DOT to get stuff done.
Thanks.
All right?
Thank you, Matthew.
Well,
So 951 extension. The reason why this was getting studied is the master plan that was completed in 2023 said, well, this can't be all. We need to have something north, south, east of the interstate. The previous, what we wanted to do was pull up kind of just an overview, quick type of thing as part of our long-range plan update. Update the project costs, look at anything that might have changed out there, maybe look at some runs further out to the east, and I'll talk about that in a second. The previous PD&E study was done, it stopped just before being approved, before a public hearing was ever held on it, was the early 2000s. This was the alignment that was essentially there before, a little bit rounded in some spots, but essentially that was what was the preferred alternative at that time. And we're looking at some alternatives around it. But the speed to the point right now, it's $1.8 billion. And to build this, previously it was assumed it was going to be tolled. The traffic model we're showing is anywhere from 16 to 26, depends on the segments and whatever alternatives. Meanwhile, you can look at that money and look at that volume and say, it's not paying for itself. We're also now looking at some traffic model runs further out to the east as well. And that's way out there. Everglades is right about in here. This is Big Cypress Parkway. There's an oil grade road that goes on an angle. And then we kind of connected the Corkscrew. I think Collier's going to look at connecting it to another road that's closer to Mockley that goes up towards 82. But as I'm saying, besides all the other issues, the cost is way too much at this point to move forward. So 2050 long-range plan, this is what we're adopting, a new long-range plan with a 2050 horizon in December. This is some of the background. One of the things obviously we're dealing with is a lot more growth coming out to the east, as you'll notice, down like Corkscrew Road and everything.
That is just...
So major projects within the next 5 years, I-75 widening. This is a moving Florida forward project that the governor pushed forward. So 8 laning will start soon, and I say soon, a couple of years, with going from 6 to 8 lanes from Golden Gate to Corkscrew Road. 3 Oaks extension, like was mentioned before, now it's the rest of it up to Daniels. And it includes an 8-lane section of Daniels from Fiddlesticks over to the interchange as well. I-75 and Daniels DDI, that's starting soon. Corkscrew Road, Belletare to East, that should be done, completion spring next year.
Don, what's DDI, Diamond Exchange?
It's a divergent diamond, just like at
Colonial?
Colonial, right. It's working better now that the CFI is open.
I think people have to get used to it, that's
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah, you're gonna see a lot more, because the one thing that's advantage is you can fit it under the current structures, so you don't have to rebuild all the structure. Leaker Road connector from Airport Hall Road to State Road 82, roughly next 5 years. I know there's a first phase, there's a bunch of phases through there. Permitting definitely will take some time as well, though, moving forward. Model runs, this shows you if it's like a red or the black color, it's worse. I don't get too excited about the yellow or the other, because you're talking about 2050 conditions and capacities where you're kind of, doing some rough estimates. When you look at the graphic in what's posted, it'll look a little better than what's shown right there. This is the long-range plan. I will tell you that this is what's considered cost feasible back when we did it 5 years ago. It's gonna look much different this time around, because project costs have gone, essentially doubled in 5-6 years. And our revenues are down, so it's not gonna look like that this time around.
Is there still a state road from north to south coming from the state?
Not that, I don't even.
Center of
Oh,
state?
what is it, what was the thing called?
M-Course?
M-Course. No, that went away.
Oh, yeah, okay.
So yeah, the revenues, the one thing I'll just point out, that the second and third, I won't talk about the other ones, the second and third column, those are what, about 300 million? That was about $1 billion last time. So that tells you where we're at. Schedule, who cares about the stuff in between? The December 12th is when we have adoption. We'll have a public meeting coming up, April or May timeframe, to talk about workshop. And then we'll have a cost feasible more like the end of the summer, so. And here's for workforce housing.
Thank
Are any of those documents available to the public online?
We're going to make sure that this presentation is available,
correct.
and there's contact information, and I just want to acknowledge, first of all, your input is valuable and important. You have a ground level view of what's happening in our community that engineers, planners, us as professionals look at from a different angle. So I want to encourage you to talk to Matt, talk to Don, and to make sure that you're engaged in the discussions of these long-range plans. And so I'm going to make a few connections here. So how did we get to affordable housing after talking about fatalities on our roadways? And by the way, when he talks about fatalities and he's talking about serious injuries, we're not talking about serious injuries, you get a neck brace and you go to work in a month. We're talking about people whose lives are changed forever. They are disabled, they are severely impacted by the crash. And I hope if you walk away with nothing, none of you ever call these things accidents again. They're crashes. And one of the things that this study, kind of brought to the forefront, that's 71% of the community that's talking about enforcement. There's a component here of these crashes and these fatalities that are personal responsibility. Our behavior behind the wheel needs to change. We need to be respectful, we need to let traffic merge, we need to be careful about how we take the privilege of driving. When my son started driving years ago, and I'm not gonna tell you, but years and years ago, when he got his driver's license, the first thing they told him is, he goes, "Here's your driver's license, young man, congratulations," at 16. It's a privilege that can be revoked. Be careful. And that is the attitude we should take every single day. We can put a cop on every corner, but if once that cop leaves, your behavior changes. That says more about us as a community.
Absolutely.
So Alan and I bonded over one single comment early on, creating a sense of place. There are places in the world where if you took a picture, you would know instantly where that person is. Florida is one of them. Florida is absolutely one of them. People come to Florida because of all of the beautiful things that are around us. We need to make it better. We need to make it a better place. And there is this incredible connection between land use and the decisions that we make about our housing and the connections to our transportation network and system. Our systems have to be connected. and they have to travel through communities. So when you look at, next slide. When you look-
It's on the thing there.
Oh, there it is, I got it.
Go down, that's it.
When we look at the statistics of affordable housing, I want you to look at these statistics in the framework of what happened in the housing market in 2024 nationally. Interest rates on housing, it was not, I'll save you the Reader's Digest versions, right? It was not a good year for housing, right? What happened was interest rates bounced up and down. They went down a little bit, but then they came back up. So the affordability put some pressure on the price of houses, and the housing market reacted. Houses came down a little bit, but then the prices came back up. And so what happened is it becomes this real tension in the community. And as people cannot afford to live in your community, they will come from other places that are more affordable. And guess what? It's not just us living here. Now it's us bringing in all of this traffic that results in much wider roads, much longer queues, much longer stopping at intersections, more fatalities and serious injuries on our roadways. So when you look at some of these things that are proposed, and you look at the math of rental properties for people who are looking to enter the market, young families, people who are just starting their career, there's this real pressure. The pressure on the other side is that most of us look at our home as a financial investment and part of our generational wealth. And so there's this tension that we think that one might have to be sacrificed. And I'm telling you it doesn't. Because when you have a sense of place, when your community is safe to travel in, when it's well connected and you have multiple transportation resources, and your land use is diverse enough that it allows for this inclusive housing, then you have a better community. You have a better investment. You have a better lifestyle. The other way, there we go. Right, when we're looking at these costs, right, you're looking at people who are making around this for a family of 4. It's a little bit cheaper in Charlotte, but if people are traveling from Charlotte down to Lee County for jobs, and we're talking about, people at CVS, working at CVS, people working at Publix, people who are in government jobs and with the county, who are providing services that we all need. We're talking about people attending the university. All of that puts a lot of pressure on our roadways. There's a couple of things that we can do that we can pay attention to. You can get involved with your local community and their discussions on affordable housing, workforce housing, the housing that we thought about years and years ago, these large tenements where all of these people were congregated that were low income, don't happen anymore. They just don't work. They don't work for affordable housing, and they don't work in our community that's structured the way they are. But there are public entities and developers and groups that are trying to fold in workforce housing that either give incentives or help entry-level people come into the entry-level market. And people always ask me, like, oh, you have a background in affordable housing and transportation? It's like, yeah, affordable housing is really hard to do. So I went to transportation, that's much easier. I'm kidding, but it is hard. It is hard. Because when you talk to people, the affordable housing is surrounded by a lot of very complex issues. Homelessness, areas that are less maintained, that have lower values, the impacts. It's a big conversation. You need to get involved. You need to listen and you need to learn about what's right and what's a great addition to your village of Estero. There's a couple of things that give us kind of some hope of addressing the issue in the community. Things like repurposing empty places and building affordable housing, having a mix of housing where you can have smaller ones. I will tell you, when I worked at the city of Cape Coral, we worked very hard on housing for persons with disabilities that could not have conventional jobs and needed access to transportation. there are solutions that are inclusive, right? Group homes and things that help people move into the community. If you make place for them, you make your community better. These are a couple of developments that are coming on board. There's, Don knows a whole lot more about this, and I do want to leave time for question and answer because it's really important that we get your thoughts and your feedback because that helps us do a better job. These mixed uses and commercial and residential spaces in different parts of the community. When they have a public hearing, oftentimes people come in and will react without getting all of the information. Always in advance of these meetings, there's an opportunity to ask questions. And it's a really good place to start with, how does this benefit my community? How does this work to make us a better place? What safeguards do you have in place to ensure it's successful? Ask. And I think it's a better place of having a relationship with what's going on in your community and being able to make it a better place. With that, I would love very much to continue the conversation. The affordable housing, the opportunity to connect transportation and land uses is not going away. When you talk about fatalities on our roadways, I will tell you, when I was Director of Policy Planning in Tallahassee, one of the toughest jobs I had, and I think I shared this with you, is to sit with a grieving family who's lost one person on our roadways here. And there is no way you can comfort someone who's lost someone on our roadways. They are inconsolable. And we lose something when somebody is taken from us unexpectedly because of something that we could have avoided. So with that, I'm gonna turn over the microphone for some questions, but I urge you to take some personal responsibility and be safe on our roadways, be courteous, and remember, driving in the US is a privilege. It truly is.
Well, first of all, let me thank all of our three speakers for their contribution, so please give them a round of applause. I have considerable empathy with all three speakers, and certainly with Carmen. Her thoughts about what she would say to her children and grandchildren reminded me of what I've actually told my own children and grandchildren. I've taught quite a number of people to drive. And these two things, they always remember. I have told them that when you're in charge of a car, that is a lethal weapon. That's the first thing I say. The second thing I say is when you see a solid line in the middle of the road, regard that as a brick wall. And those are the two things that they remember very well. So it just reminded me of those things. But thank you all very, very much. I'm going to pass this microphone to whoever would like to ask a question of any of our speakers and move it backwards and forwards. This is obviously a good way of recording any of your questions and comments. So I'd like to hand you this first. Yes?
Thank you for the opportunity. I think I want to address Matt. This problem that I've been talking about, that we've been talking about for the last 5 years at Estero Parkway, where we have a four-way where the Cascades and the Reserve. The seriousness of it is that someone is going to get hurt. Mm-hmm. And I guess I feel personally, as a resident, that the village has responsibility to take care of this. And if they don't, it's a neglect. They have been told about this for many years. Now, what happens is, if somebody does get killed or get hurt here, they have an opportunity to sue this village because of their negligence. And I feel strongly about that. And I know there's a lot of roadblocks that you can't get things done. But they're simple things. We're looking at something that's out till 2050. Okay, I don't think the people of this community can wait till 2050 for a lot of these things. Most of us won't be here. But the other thing is that there's simple things that we can do. more enforcement, like you had said earlier, of the speedways. People being responsible is something that this woman could tell us to do. But you're not gonna tell these people that are going down Estero Parkway at 100 miles an hour at 2 o'clock in the morning, okay, to be a little bit more responsible, because first of all, they probably don't even know where they're going. So let's start with that. But there's things that this village could do to reduce the vegetation, lower the vegetation, so that you can see, at least you have an opportunity. Another thing is what that does, is when you come out of the reserve and you come out of the Cascades, a lot of people are going to the turnabout to make a turn, which is almost just as dangerous as this man's talking about U-turns. That's another problem. So I just wish that someone would take the responsibility to address this sooner than later, because later means a death.
I certainly want to empower you in that regard, and in fact, after the meeting is over, I'd like you to stick around because I can show you the crash mapping tool that we've developed as part of this project, and actually work with you to zoom in on that intersection and see the crash data. Especially, I've heard some responses regarding crash data, but I'd like to share that info with you so you can help build your conversation. I mean, certainly there's going to be short-term and long-term improvements on that corridor with respect to this study, but maybe there's some strategies that I could arm you with for some more immediate.
I would appreciate that,
yeah.
thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Okay, yes?
I just want to pick up on this discussion, sir, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, but wasn't there originally a proposed roundabout at that intersection?
There was.
Yeah.
Wasn't there a roundabout proposed at that intersection? And that
Correct.
was the original,
Proposed.
that was the original proposal. And my
It never
understanding was there was so much resident complaint about the idea of a roundabout
really?
that who was now Mayor McLean, was your representative, and my impression is that he was garnering his support from those who wanted not to have a roundabout there. So I guess the question then is, can we go back and resurrect this discussion?
I think you need a light. I think well, Matt would explain it more.
Yeah.
A roundabout and an intersection that people are driving that fast doesn't work. And roundabout where people are driving at those speeds does nothing. That's like putting a roundabout on 75. It's just not gonna work.
Yeah.
I think a bunch of them have changed their
Like
minds.
maybe a cut through
All right.
too.
Any other questions?
Just some,
Just on another note, I'm just wondering if anything is going to be addressed as far as the electric bikes on the sidewalks, because as a pedestrian, they come up behind you, you don't hear them, and practically get run over.
That was a, yeah.
poor guy, he didn't have a chance.
Thank you
That's
for
okay.
Running it back. Micromobility is one of the key themes that we're touching on in our safety action plan. That was a common theme we saw in Fort Myers, actually. And we did produce clips of near-miss incidents involving those on electric scooters, e-bikes. Yeah, there's strategies in place that we're going to be recommending, even beyond enforcement strategies, education campaigns, just to get people to be more cognizant of the risks of these technologies. Even cracking down on there are people that soup them up, that remove the speed limiters from them. It can be very dangerous. So we have policy recommendations in place for that.
Mm-hmm. Good. Yes.
I think there are really three issues here. P for planning, in all due respect to Don and to Carmen. P for planning, as opposed to when you're in a car crash, let's go back to Car Shield. Let's go back to endurance auto warranty. If your car doesn't break down, they don't pay you. If your car breaks down, they pay you. That's the problem. The planning needs to be before the crashes. The good planning needs to profile or know when those crashes are coming. It isn't just when they happen. Secondly, there are no Estero Council people here. I urged Alan to please, unless this is something to be done, you must have at least one or two of the people there, not Mary Gibbs, not David Willems. Nobody's come to these meetings. It's the second, third time I've come to these. That's not right. That's a disgrace. We have planning folks, we have counselors that don't seem to be involved in these things, and they were the ones that started the ECL, whatever we were called in those days. They're not coming. Thirdly, county commissioners, as long as they are funded by, their campaigns are funded by developers, we won't see any change. I'm sorry.
I have a point of contention, if I may. I spent quite a few years here watching the situation degrade to the most horrible bunch of absolute trash on the roadways that I've seen, that is here. I went to the city council meeting and laid out everything from speeding to moving violations, which this place is one constant moving violation, to not being able to use the bike lanes, to improper behavior in the crosswalks, totally, especially at Sterile and Corkscrew intersections. There's no one here. I have had no feedback from anybody on the council, including the representative for District 4, and also no feedback from the DOT, or the Sheriff's Department, or the Highway Patrol, or anybody else. So we have a situation here where you can spend a lot of time planning, okay? Nothing is being done here. Nothing. And I'm not speaking off the top of my head, I'm speaking over a long period of time. I've lived here for several years. So, is it a vigilant situation or what? Because we're not doing anything here. And if the test pattern goes on here and completes in April, and the way Jeremy is saying, they are under the auspices to increase the speed limit. The other end of Tamiami south is 55 miles an hour. Yeah, we can't get out of Cypress Bend. It is unsafe here. Safety, which is, I believe, should be, anyway, in my opinion, as a retired power lineman, the pinnacle of our objectives here. There's no one from Wink here. I've already done an interview with insurance with Wink and if they call me back, I'm going to be doing an interview with Wink on the safety in Estero on the roadway. So I've done about as much as I can stand after 3 years. So yeah, I'm only here for 6 months, and I'm in Canada for the rest of the time. But I have done what I feel as though I can do to try to improve safety in this community. And I don't find any of the leadership doing anything at all. That's all I've got. One should be here too.
I did have one question, which was, well, it was actually several, which was asked of me to perhaps ask Don while he's here. And that was obviously about plans for the future. I know that several have been concerned about the density of traffic that runs along Corkscrew Road between 41 and 75. We now, of course, are having a significant improvement in the developments that are taking place alongside the Lowe's development there. You know, you've seen a lot of development in there, and now just on the corner as you turn into Lowe's from 41, we have a very popular Wawa that's coming into play. And people have been concerned that, you know, with much greater traffic turning right, if they're going east into that area, will actually increase further backing up from that second light before the light on Three Oaks. So if we're looking east, if you look at the Three Oaks light on Corkscrew, then the one that goes into Lowe's is quite close to there and is already backing up even before Wowers actually becomes open. So the question really was, will we, in the forecast, consider having an expansion from 4 lanes to 6 lanes along that stretch between 75 and 41 to accommodate some of the turns and, of course, the increased traffic? That was the question.
So, as the long-range plan's updated right now, I am modeling it as 6 lanes, but I don't know from cost feasibility how far it's gonna go, but in the county's 3 tiers, they have 3 tiers of projects that are lined up, and I don't know if you've seen it, but the one problem side is it's $2.8 billion short between the 3 tiers, and it's roughly what would be considered the long-range plan. Between Three Oaks and I-75, they do include 6 laning in that as well. In addition to that, one of the things you're talking about is the intersections itself and the backup. We are, because of one of the reasons we were looking at 951 is the whole commuting pattern between, Lee County and Collier County, in the morning going south and the evening coming north, and all the issues that are related to that. So we are starting a congestion management thing with the focus of those roadways, those regional roadways and those intersections and the issues, that it could be more than just, oh, I'm going to lengthen this left turn lane, because that's one of the problems where people are, I get the question all the time, and I think that's where 951 came from, was how come more people aren't using Three Oaks, Livingston, and Imperial? And I said, because you go on an average day, and I don't mean when I-75 is backed up, at Bonita Beach Road, it's 3.5 miles. You're back behind the intersection. So we got to get more people through. I know there was a comment earlier that says, well, why don't you just get more timing? The more timing problem is there's only so much time to give everybody, because if you give too much time to one, then they're all backing up in another. And one of the comments I get from a traffic engineer who will remain nameless says, it's just too much traffic going through that intersection. So you got to do something more than just a little left turn extension. So yes, we realize the issue. Money is going to be one of the biggest impacts, but we're trying to look at some of the improvements as part of that.
Thank you, Dan. All right, any other quick questions? Yes?
Okay, we seem to be catching up after the fact. These studies, don't they do them when they approve the developments that they're using here to create more and more traffic? Like, why aren't those studies done ahead of time and taken into consideration before getting approvals for the development?
Right. Good. Is there an answer?
So I don't think we ever catch up, to be honest with you, but let's just take one of the developments, Kingston, for instance, for me. I was at an event kind of like this, speaking about what was going on, and they go, how come you don't show this north-south road in here? I'm like, what are you talking about? I didn't even know about it, that Kingston had got approved. So that's one product, and that was because of a court case and all the issues went with it. But that didn't have a whole lot of lead time when you talk about what's even in the long-range plan. Now, beyond that, there's a whole lot of development coming at Corkscrew Road and State Road 82 right now that's being planned. It's not approved at the moment, but it happens faster than any of our money goes. I mean, we're working on stuff that we should have been doing, years ago, essentially. It never seems to catch up. You go back to the downturn, the impact fees were lowered. The impact fees aren't paying the amount of money it needs to do to cover the cost of the roads either.
Well, it seems that the ordinances or the laws for approving these developments needs to change. Or else it's never gonna change, because I grew up on the East Coast. I saw what happened. You're worried about the speed limit going up, you won't have to worry in a couple of years, because nobody's gonna be able to move beyond 45 miles an hour. So it doesn't matter. You can go on 95 over at Fort Lauderdale and you can't move. So that's what's gonna happen here. And Florida never seems to learn their lesson. They never seem to learn it. So why don't they change those things before they end up developing what they develop.
You need to change that in Tallahassee,
Yeah,
even
I know.
locally.
Tallahassee and the county. The county has an LPA, local planning agency. They are made up, and they're the ones that approve developments. Guess who's on that committee? All real estate people and developer representatives. Camerata's guy and a bunch of other people that all we know about.
It should be a conflict.
Secondly, you know, the traffic situation has to be planned to the point where the M word has to come up, moratorium. We have an emergency situation, I think Carmen mentioned it, we have an emergency situation on our roads. You are allowed to put a moratorium on development, as we did in Pennsylvania, in the fastest growing township in Pennsylvania, Montgomery Township, so that we could plan for what is coming. That's not happening here. But you folks have to be, and because I have for 10 years been trying to stop this at the county level, Estero now is just approving everything as well. They approved the Day Palms Academy right at River Ranch and Corkscrew. Are you kidding me? So naturally, when Goddard opened up, they're not going to be able to have a feasibility to open that property. So it's on the market for $3 million. Somebody else is going to move in there on River Ranch Road, which is a two-lane road going to the high school. Are you kidding me? This is what's going on in our town, and you folks, and because I've been going to meetings, have to go to the Estero meeting. There was an election this year. Guess what? Nobody else ran, so the two people are automatically elected. That's our fault.
All right, well, we're moving to a point where perhaps we will need to ask Jim just to round up the meeting in just a few moments. One of the things that I said at the meeting in October, and I will say again, is I know that our panelists have made the very, very important point that they do want your information, they do want your guidance, and of course many of you have spoken about certain things this morning. If there are other things that cross your mind that you would like Engage Estero to pass to our consultants here, we would of course be more than happy to do that. So do please drop us a note. I will give you my email address personally afterwards that you can do that, and we promise to do that. I equally concur that it is disappointing that, of course, after the announcements that have been made, that we don't have any of the council members or management here. The only thing that I will say is the two things. Number one, you know, we always do a short write-up of the issues that have been discussed at these meetings. They will be available to the council and the management, and of course we have our videographer Wilson, who does a great job, as he did at the last meeting and others, to provide the summary of an edited summary of what we've been discussing today. And those details will also be posted so that people can hear them. You can share them with your friends and your neighbors. And we have a very, very high hit rate on the YouTube video that actually Wilson posts for us. And obviously we let everybody know. So those details are available. And even the panel members here, if they wish to provide any of that information to either their colleagues or to other people, are very welcome to do that. So I just wanted to make all of those points to you. So thank you again, and thank you panelists for your contribution to our excellent meeting today. So,
thank you.
I just want to say, I work personally with Don and Carmen. They're very good to work with. They're very good planners. Unfortunately, they're not, the commissioners and the councils aren't listening to them.
Sure.
With all due respect.
All right. Well, I'm just going to hand over to Jim, who, as you may know, is our president of Engage Estero, and he'd just like to say a few summing up words before we finish.
Thank you, Ellen, and thanks, panel. It's really good information. Before I get into some of the meat that I want to talk about, it's going to be short. I wanted...
Just put this on.
Oh, okay. Okay. You going to do the others? Yeah, okay. So I wanted to just give you a perception that perhaps you'll take away as maybe the way to go forward. Engage Estero, previously ECCL, has been around for 25 years. Over that 25 years, we've done a tremendous amount of service for the community. Even which really is, I think, important, is the establishment of the Village of Estero. Very, very much involved in that. Don Eslick and others were really heavily involved in making that happen. So what I suggest you do is come to terms with some of the comments you've heard made here. And that is, you're running against stone walls, in many instances, by not really doing what we think is really important. If you have a problem or you have something you think is really great, you need to form some grassroots folks. Get people like you together. Form these folks that agree with what you're all about and start to do some of these things. Get petitions, as many signatures as you possibly can, to the people that make the decisions, whether it's the Lee County Commissioners or the council people at the village and so on. That's one thing. The other is picket Sound Hall. I mean, seriously, get their attention. That's what they're going to pay. That's how you're going to make things happen. You need to do that, and then finally, be careful about who you vote for. I mean, seriously, again, you cannot expect the individuals that are here to come up with all the answers. They can give you some advice and counsel on where you should go, how you should go, who you should go with, what you expect to have happen, and so on. But they can't make it happen. They cannot make it happen. You make it happen. And you make it happen by forming organizations, small grassroots organizations, and then doing the kinds of things. And there's more than I just mentioned you can get done. But it takes the people to expand their voice, increase the volume of their voice to make things happen. So that's just some observations of what I've heard today. We've been around for 25 years. If you want to know more about us, visit engageesterotoday.com. You'll find out all you want to know about Engage Estero. I want to talk about where we're going from 2025 through 2027. We have some goals that we'd like to accomplish. And these goals, although they may not seem that they would support the kinds of issues you've raised here vis-a-vis traffic, they do, they will. For example, one of our goals is expand our email addresses to 15,000, getting for 20,000 at the end of 2027. Email addresses are important to us because that's how we get our information out to you. It increases, the more we have, it increases the strength of our voice to get messages out, fact-based information to the people about issues that are happening, both good and bad, both good and bad. We want to increase social media followers to 1,000, targeted 15,000 by the end of 2027. Again, it increases our reach into the particular market, into the marketplace or community. We want to launch podcasts by 2025. We want to form an Engage Estero research team by the end of 2025. Why? Because research is going to give us fact-based information, unbiased, fact-based information that we can get out to you, informing you, and when you are informed, you become empowered. But you still have to take the next step, and you have to pull together others that are in your areas and get them to understand, like you understand, the issues that are happening and what they can do about it. We'd like to achieve a funding level in Engage Estero of $400,000 a year over the next 3 years. Why? Because that's what we need to survive. We will not survive much longer if we don't have the funding coming in from people like you, from organizations, businesses, etc., to keep us moving. We want to maintain a minimum balance of $750,000 in an escrow account for emergencies, for quick responses for people that need it, etc. Now, we have done that in the past, but we find that if we don't have the dollars that are right there we won't be as effective and efficient in getting to people who need what they need if there's some kind of an emergency taking place. So that's important to us. We want to transition Engage Estero to a professionally managed and volunteer-led organization. We're all volunteers. None of us get a nickel for this. We have masochistic tendencies, and that's why we're here. The point is that we need to do that, and the only way to do that is that we have funding to pay people, professional people that can manage the organization, and then have a good, solid board that are volunteers that lead us and set policy for the organization going forward. A volunteer organization has limitations. Can you imagine what it's like running a volunteer organization? No, you can't. You can't really. But it's not easy to do because the incentives are very low. We have limitations. Control is not there. So we want to move down the road, that's one of our goals, to make this a professionally run organization. How do we do that? We want to engage with the community for insights. How do we do that? Surveys, meetings, direct comments, etc., that we get from a variety of people will give us the opportunity to surface what are the major issues and then go about taking a position on those major issues in the sense that we simply give you good, solid information that hopefully will encourage you to get engaged, to do something about it, either supporting something good or taking positions on something that you feel is not so good. We want to motivate businesses and individuals to invest their dollars in us. We want to make sure we make it clear that we are a nonpartisan, non-political, unbiased organization, and that's what we are. We are that way not only because we think it's the right thing to do, but we are a 501c3 organization. IRS designated 501c3, and we should not and cannot be political, and we're staying away from that. We don't encourage any political activity. We don't support any political individuals that are looking to get into office, etc. We stay away from that. In motivating people to invest, we want to make sure that they're getting a strong return on investment, an ROI. If they're sending us money, what are they getting for it? We have to make sure that we have, in fact, put in place a program that rewards these folks for being supporters of us. We want to partner with a local research firm to boost our research efforts. We want professional research for extensive review. We want to make sure that what we say, if we say X is X, then it is X. If we say Y is Y, then it is Y. And we'll have research background, fact-finding background that support our position on it. And we want to host some network informational events to foster connections. These are the kinds of things we, in terms of goals and strategies, that we'd like to do over the next 3 years, and I just wanted to share that with you. If you have any questions about Engage Estero and what we're doing, do you have any at all? I'll be happy to answer them or give the mic to somebody who can. What do you think? How many of you have heard of Engage Estero before you came here to see this? Okay, a few of you have, okay. If there are no other questions, then I guess there isn't much more. I guess what I talked about this and I didn't do it. Oh, okay, here we go. That's what I just said. That's what I just said. Okay, that's basically the bottom line from my perspective, so thank you very much. Anybody else? Okay?
I think we have a question.
Oh, yes. Julie? Do you have a question?
Recognize Julie.
Oh, recognize Julie.
She wants to speak. Give her the microphone.
She doesn't. She doesn't want to speak. Have you been drinking?
Her highway pickup program.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna. Okay. Julie Yelling is here. Stand up, Julie. Julie Yelling is the director of a group of people that go out and clean up the highway, clean up 41. You see some articles going on about all the pictures of all these folks. And Julie put it all together several years ago. She approached us and said, we ought to do something about it. We agreed, and she just took it from there. And now, in fact, not only is Engage Estero out there doing that, it's encouraged other community groups that are doing the same thing. And, excuse me. And it's amazing how much it's impacted how 41 looks between, I guess, Coconut Road and up to the Vines, right? And other community, other groups have come together to clean up their area as well. So Julie is great, and we're actually going to do a little formal recognition next month. Yes, Julie?
Yeah, I just want to make a point of saying too that the county program has been around for the county roads in Estero for a long time. The FDOT program with the state, as Jim said, we got involved. This will be our 5th season working with FDOT on 41. The following year, talking with Steve Sarkozy, we've got 3 roads in Estero that are a part of the Village program. Williams, Estero Parkway, and via Coconut Point. And so there are volunteers, again, this is the 4th season for that, and there's a number of other roads where residents on those roads are unofficially going up and down and collecting litter. So there's a great deal of effort in Estero, and I hear from people all the time who say, well, what about my little corner? And I help them to get started with their corner that they want to see. So there's a lot of effort of a lot of volunteers in Estero who are engaged with getting litter off the roads, and a couple people have mentioned that there's a lot of reasons why we want a litter-free community, but there's a lot of effort in that in Estero. I'm very proud of all of our neighbors who are involved in that mission.
Thank you, Julie. Julie's also an example of the individuals that have pulled together folks in the community to do that kind of work. You can do the same with that kind of thing. You can do the same thing to deal with the major issues you have in mind. Yes, sir.
Yes, Jim. The whole idea of engaging something would be
as long as you've gone through all the effort to form this committee, I think 2 of the main things that you'd want to engage would be the Department of Transportation and the Sheriff's Department. I'm retired from the city of Austin. The police department there offered incentives to good drivers, $50, $100, especially during the holiday season. I called and spoke with the Sheriff Department again after many years of speaking with them, and asked this year possibly if they could possibly offer any incentive programs to turn around the bad driving habits that we have here. They have nothing. Every place I've gone here, any positive reinforcement to correct measures that are almost intolerable here now, in my opinion anyway, have come to no fruition at all. So if we're going to engage anybody, believe there's plenty of organizations we need to engage around here, and I've been engaging them for the past 3 years. So I don't know, if there's a lot of conversation going on, but I don't know exactly outside of vigilance what else we can possibly do to get something positive going on in this community to turn it into something that looks more like Hawaii, where they have regulations on speed and control of driving behavior so people aren't driving with their poor personalities, which is what we have here.
Thank you. I did not mention this, but we are actually doing exactly what you said. One of our focus is clearly in the traffic, what's going on now. It's one of the reasons we're here today. We were hoping we'd have a lot more people in this room, right? But it's one of the things we are going to focus on now. One of the things we're waiting for is that the village has authorized a traffic study, and that traffic study is due to be out pretty soon. We will get our hands on that traffic study. They will not stop us from it. They will give us a traffic study, and that's what we get into it. And that's why I talk about having good researchers and really understand that. And we would be talking to the folks that are sitting at the dais here, we'll talk to people out there, and we'll do our analysis of it, reach our conclusions, and come out with recommendations that should go to the various players. Now, having said that, it sounds good, but is it that much different than what you're doing now? Not really, is it? It really isn't. You've got to build up your own muscle. You've got to get out there, stand out there, make your voice known, attend these council meetings, make sure when you see they're developing roads or developing housing here, go to the Planning and Zoning Board and spend some time there. I mean, you've shown initiative sitting in this room. You need to show more initiative by sitting in these other rooms. That in fact, and eventually they'll get tired of hearing you and maybe something will happen. I mean, it's unfortunate, I don't mean to be a comedian, but the point is that's how it's going to work, because what's the common theme I heard here? Frustration. Frustration. You're all frustrated about what's not happening. Or you're frustrated because you think what is happening isn't happening quick enough. Well, those are the kinds of issues that should be standing up. You have 3 minutes. Anytime you go to a council meeting, you can sign up a card and take 3 minutes to tell them what you think of them and what you think they're doing well and not doing well. Take that advantage. You cannot expect an organization like Engage Estero to take this on and be as effective as you would be. We could help you. We will give you information. We'll give you tools that we think could help you get where you want to go. You could reach out to us. But we should not take an advocacy position. Our position, I'll tell you, excuse me, I'll tell you why.
Okay?
I'll tell you.
It's not political.
We don't, because when you take an advocacy position, typically you find those who agree with you and those who don't agree with you. You don't get that far with it. Now, there are exceptions to that rule, Bob. There are exceptions to it. But our position is, we think the way you get empowered is by informing you with unbiased, fact-based truths about what is actually happening. Your job, then, is to take that information and make your elected representatives respond to you. We can help you in terms of tools and tactics to do that. But you have to do it. You have to do it with our support. Okay, anybody else have anything? Thank you very much for coming. Jason.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.